Teresa Newman here from Breaking Christian News. Recently, we published a report about Matthew Botsford and his experience when he died and went to hell after being shot in 1992 in a drive-by shooting in Atlanta, Georgia. Now here today with an exclusive Skype interview for Breaking Christian News is Matthew from near Atlanta, Georgia, to tell us more. Good morning, Matthew.
Good morning.
It's great to see you. I would like you to just start out telling our readers a little bit more about yourself.
Okay, well, married, same wife now, 23 odd years, was my high school sweetheart. And we don't have children. We have a little puppy. And like you said, we live in Georgia, love boating. But really what we spend our full time doing is in ministry. Ever since this event happened. So that's who we are.
Great.
Yeah.
And you're originally from Michigan, you said?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Just outside of Detroit.
So I just found your testimony fascinating. A lot of our readers did too. We got a huge response from the report that we published about you. And
isn't that awesome?
Yes, it was.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, it really intrigued me, which is why I found the report and wrote it up initially, and it struck a chord with a lot of readers. Because part of it for me is because you read a lot about, or not a lot, but you more often than not will read reports about people going to heaven. It's not very common to hear about people that have gone to hell, and so. What I found intriguing too is at the time of the shooting, you were an atheist, you weren't a Christian. And I wondered, was your wife an atheist also?
She was. She didn't believe in God either.
Okay. So that's the context that you were in when this incident happened, is that you, and when you say you were an atheist, you weren't raised a Christian and then turned your back on God, or?
We were raised, if you want to call it that. I technically was raised, well, I don't want to say raised, but I was taken to church, like on Christmas and Easter as a Lutheran.
Okay.
And my wife, kind of the same thing as a Catholic. But when we came to the age of being adults, nothing stuck.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Nothing ever got ingrained in our hearts that would establish a faith or a belief. I'm not saying anything in a negative way towards towards either Lutherans or Catholics.
Mm-hmm.
Our experience was that.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay, and so when you say you were an atheist, you just basically turned your back on God. You didn't believe in a God at that time, and you didn't believe in a heaven or hell. You didn't care.
I could care less.
Okay.
Right.
I guess that, that, but yeah, it's nice.
At 28 years old, that was pretty much invincible.
Yeah.
Wasn't a bad person though. I mean, kind of, we were just basically, chasing after the American dream.
Right.
Good people.
Yeah.
Friendly people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So after the shooting, I did a little bit more research, and after the shooting, the left side of your body was paralyzed. And you suffered some serious cognitive issues. And when you were in a coma, struggling to survive, evidently your wife said she felt the presence of Jesus. And she actually prayed at that time that if you lived with the core of who you were intact, that she would stay with you. And with her by your side, you went through 2.5 years of rigorous physical therapy. I have had a little physical therapy for very minor issues, and it's a lot of work. I can't imagine coming back from serious injuries like that. I mean, it would have to be your total focus in life at the time. Is there anything you want to expound on about that time of rehab? What you went through, what maybe your thoughts were? Were you angry at God? Did you just not even think about Him? What happened?
Well, that's a good question. Through all those couple of years of rehab, because it was a brain injury, the bullet coming
And it's still there, correct?
It's still in the front right lobe, yes.
Okay.
I term it, we've termed it like I was living in La La Land.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing really mattered. All I knew is that all the doctor's prognoses of, you'll never walk again. I was sitting in the wheelchair, now learning how to write with my right hand because I was left-handed, and it's the left side of my body that's paralyzed or hemiplegic, I suppose you would say.
So you are still paralyzed?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The extremities, for fine dexterity and stuff like that, I don't use my left hand. I've got a brace that goes from my knee. It's an ankle foot orthotic, an AFO, that I wear on my left leg, so that my foot doesn't drop. So, thank God we ended up turning towards him through this whole incident, because if it wasn't by his grace and his strength, I can see how people give up in life. They're like, I can't win this battle. I can see how people come to that point.
Were you, during the rehab, so you never were like mad at God during that or after that time? You didn't,
oh yeah, there were my bouts with anger and frustration.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think I ever pinned it on him.
Mm-hmm. Of course, we're going to get to this in a second. Part of that also could be a result of what else happened, because although your recovery from the shooting is a miracle, I think, it just sounds like a miracle that you recovered from that. But beyond that, right. When you were shot, you had that incredible out-of-body experience when you were in a coma. So our readers have read a little bit about that, but I'd like to hear you talk about it with us, maybe expound on it a little bit more.
Okay.
What happened?
Okay. Well, it was horrible. I felt this really hot pierce at the top of my head, which obviously is when the bullet entered. And then I just remember feeling my body crushed to the sidewalk, instantly dead. All my life left me. And then next thing I found myself chained, crucifixion style actually, which is very interesting because everything that was happening to me in hell was a direct mocking of what Jesus did for all of us. So here I am in hell, crucifixion style, chained out over this very deep abyss. I'm seeing the smoke rise up before me, and I'm hearing all these horrendous screams. I was alone though, which in and of itself is terrifying, to know that you're alone. I've heard people say, I'll just continue this life, so if I end up in hell, big deal. I'll just continue to party like I've always done. Mm-hmm. It doesn't work that way. You're all alone. Mm-hmm.
There was a horrible sense of loneliness.
Yeah.
Was it a sense of something that was beyond the natural, nothing that you'd experienced like that before? Was it a really profound sense of loneliness?
Very profound.
Okay.
Nothing like I could have ever imagined. Nothing like I had ever read. Mm-hmm. Bleakness, hopelessness, isolation. It was as if evil was pressing in on me continuously. Mm-hmm. It was almost like if you had stepped into a liquid bath of evilness. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because it was just enveloping my body. Mm-hmm. I knew there was nothing good. I knew nothing good was coming to me. I knew there was nothing good about me. Mm-hmm. So yes, it's very, very profound. Mm-hmm. And then like in the article, all of the different demonic torments, the creatures I saw, the various shelf levels I could see in this massive cavern. I knew I was underground too. Something, I just knew it. It
was dark. It was dark.
Very dark.
Okay.
Very cold.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting that you said it was so cold, because that seems to go against, the popular concept of hell as being burning.
Sure.
But it sometimes, what's interesting is sometimes you can be ice cold, can feel like it's burning. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It can be so intense that it actually feels the opposite. But
exactly, because your senses are just overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Because I was in my bodily form, I could see myself, without clothes, which didn't even seem like a big deal to me. It was like I was stripped of everything. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I had no memories of being married. I had no memories of past accomplishments. I had no thoughts about the future. The only thing was that existence in that here and now. And I also knew that this was an eternal existence. Somehow I knew I was outside of a temporal realm.
And you knew you were in hell?
I did not know where I was. I only knew what it was. I could see it. It wasn't until years later, through revelation from the Holy Spirit and then lining it up with the Word of God, that I knew that that's actually, I was held until the day comes for final judgment.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Like a prison.
Yes, a holding cell, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so what happened?
And fortunately, in the earthly realms, like you had mentioned, Teresa, Jesus came to my wife in the hospital because she was going through her own type of hell, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
Through despair. And he touched her on the shoulder and empowered her with his power to then know how to deal with the situation, to make life and death decisions, because there were organ donors with coolers lined up. They were wanting my organs. I was a healthy 28-year-old young man. Mm-hmm. So all I needed her to do was sign on a line, and they would pull off of life support.
Right.
And she was like, no. And so that's when, like you mentioned, the prayer that she prayed.
So she had an encounter with Jesus there in the hospital when she called out in prayer, and she traces her salvation basically back to that moment when she met him there. Okay, and so this parallel timeline, she prays, Jesus appears to her, and then what happens to you then?